This is MBC Exclusive. My name is Blessings Chileuka. Ever thought of investing on the Malawi Stock Exchange? Then this is the right edition of MBC Exclusive for you. In this edition, I'm engaging the Chief Executive Officer for the Malawi Stock Exchange, Mr. John Robson Kamanga. Welcome into the program.
No, thank you. Most welcome.
Malawi Stock Exchange. Can you break it down for us? What services are being offered there?
Thank you. Malawi Stock Exchange is an institution which is licensed under the Financial Services Act of 2010 under the Reserve Bank of Malawi, which is actually we call the Registrar of Financial Institutions, who is the ultimate regulator of the stock market. But the Malawi Stock Exchange, as it is basically the market, just like any other market. But it deals with the financial instruments. In this case, we deal in terms of actually the shares, which are being traded, as well as bonds. Within the bonds aspect, we have what we call the corporate bonds, but we also have what we call the government bonds, which are also listed. So our area of focus is basically to provide a platform for raising of capital, especially for companies who would like actually to raise capital in terms of actually to increase either the working capital or to invest in other areas of their avenues of investment. So we provide that link between the financial savers as well as the deficit units who are raising capital. And then, having raised that capital, we also provide a platform for actually the trading of those instruments, which we call the secondary market. Other than that, we also provide what we call the supervision of actual trading activities, such that at least there is fairness, there is transparency, as well as competition in terms of price discovery once actually those instruments which are being traded on the stock market, there is actually that element of fairness. So basically our mandate, if you look at in terms of our purpose for existence, is to provide a platform for raising of capital for actual institutions who would like actually to raise capital to increase either their working capital or to expand in terms of your activities. On top of that is to provide a platform for trading of securities which has already been issued to the general public. And then thirdly is basically to supervise the trading activities on the stock market to ensure that at least there is transparency, there is proper price discovery, such that the minority investor is well protected as invested within the powers invested in us under the Financial Services Act as an entity licensed under the SAM.
You have a huge responsibility.
You are quite right. Yes, we have a huge responsibility because one of the issues which, other than actually running the market, because we also come in terms of actually trying to educate the mass with regards to investment, as well as actually, I would say, on financial literacy. Because within the financial aspect, there are several products. There are products within the money market. For example, if you can go into the banking, you go into the treasury bills, you have instruments in the insurance and pension. But then us as a player in the capital market, we dwell very much on shares as well as bonds. And therefore, our mandate is also to educate so that we provide information to the general public on how they can benefit and on how they can access the capital market through the Malawi Stock Exchange.
Now, can you give us a brief overview of the current status of the Malawi Stock Exchange and probably what has been your contribution to the development of the country's economy?
Thank you, Blessings. If you look at in terms of the status of the stock market currently, I would say if in terms of the general situation analysis is that we have about 16 listed companies, and we also have about 56 bonds listed on the Malawi Stock Exchange. And based on that aspect, if you look at in terms of the 16 listed companies, if you look at in terms of on how we have performed this year from January to let's say 31st July 2023, the market has been quite buoyant. By buoyant, I mean that at least that the market is doing quite well, and the investors have benefited quite a lot. Out of the 16, we have about 13 listed companies which have registered what we call capital gains, whereby the price have increased, and we have companies whereby they have grown from January in excess of 200%, you know, like NBS. And out of that, the others actually up to 14%. But it's only 3 companies which have registered, I would say, a lower aspect. One of it is actually negative 8%, and then another one negative 2%, and another one negative 0.8%. So you can see that the market has done quite well. Overall, in terms of percentage aspects, in Kwacha terms, we have grown in terms of the return on investment. That's the benefit in terms of the capital gains, is about 106%. And then if you convert the same in terms of the hard currency in US dollar terms, it's about 76.6%. That's why even under what we call the African Financial Markets Report, Malawi Stock Exchange has been ranked as one of the best performing stock market in Africa during this actually half of the year, because we have registered about 76.6% in hard currency terms. So this also signifies, actually, it's also quite important, especially to an investor who would like to hedge against inflation, because the inflation currently is hovering around 29%. So with a return of about 76%, it means you have good real returns, which is well above the inflation. If you also look at it in terms of actually the hard currency, we have seen our kwacha actually having been depreciated by about 25%. Then thereafter, we had about a depreciation of 2.68%, and then recently we had also about 2 to 3% depreciation. If cumulatively you add together, you'll find that at least with a return of 76.6%, you are quite actually comfortable in the sense that at least your real return is in excess of about 35%. Therefore, you are able to hedge against these variables of i.e. in terms of inflation, as well as actually the exchange rate actually losses which you may encounter by investing on the stock market. In simple terms, you haven't been affected by the macroeconomic variables? Not really in terms of the returns. However, the macroeconomic variables, if you look at in terms of the critical ones, one, if you look at in terms of the exchange rate, if you look at in terms of the inflation, if you look at in terms of the interest, as well as unemployment. These are the key macroeconomic variables one has to look at when investing on the stock market. And they have a bearing on the stock market. If I start, for example, in terms of the exchange rate, there is a time whereby you find that if the kwacha depreciates quite actually significantly, that it also erodes, especially on foreign investors. Because what would happen is that for the foreign investors, he may have brought in $1,000 and invested, let's say, at a rate of maybe 1,100 Malawi kwacha per dollar. And then if the kwacha depreciates, for example, maybe to about 1,400, it means actually the kwacha may have depreciated by 25%. Even if the price have gone up, maybe by 25%, you find that the gain is very marginal. In such a case that at least that it has eroded your real return because of actually the exchange rate losses which you have experienced on the stock market. So the macroeconomic variables has got an impact on the stock market in the sense that it can erode your investment returns which actually you have realized in kwacha terms, because our investment on the stock market is actually in local currency. It is not actually in dollar aspect. The other aspect which one has to look at in terms of actually the macroeconomic variables is with regards to the inflation aspect. Inflation, similarly, it also erodes that returns in terms of real returns. For example, if the inflation is at 29%, and then your nominal returns by investing on the stock market, you have gotten it, let's say, by up to 35 or 36%, it means your real return, the nominal of 35 returns minus the inflation, you'll find that at least your on real return is about 5 or to 6%. That could also be a deterrent to any investor who would like to come on the stock market.
Now, I wanted you to take us through the process. If one is interested in investing on the Malawi Stock Exchange, what's the procedure like?
The procedure is quite simple, blessings, coming on the stock market. One of the issues one of the procedures you get is that there are two elements. what we call the primary market and the secondary market. At the primary market is when you find that you invest directly by subscribing into a form what we call in the prospectus. During the time of IPO, you have heard about the initial public offer when the company is just coming on the stock market. There is a form in the prospectus. Having read the procedures and the conditions as well as on how the company would like to do with the funds, you fill a form and then you surrender that form together with your deposit, what we call through a transfer or a receiving bank or any of the stockbroking companies which we have. So in so doing, after the closure, you are given actually, currently, I would say, you are registered under the Central Depository System, which is now sitting in Lilongwe. You become a shareholder of actually the stock market of the company which has been listed on the stock market. The other method is that when those companies have been listed on the stock market, what it entails that now you have to go to the secondary market through what we call our brokers. Currently, we have 3 brokers which actually you can access the stock market. We have Cedar Capital, we have Continental, and then we have Stockbrokers Malawi Limited. These are the brokers which are admitted and licensed by us, as well as the Registrar of Financial Institutions, to be the members of the stock market who actually there to assist the broker, the investing public in terms of investing on the stock market. And these play a very critical role, the brokers. What it happens that not all of us, we are knowledgeable in terms of actually on how the stock market actually operates. There is a saying that if you are sick, you don't go to a carpenter to seek for advice. You know, so we have these brokers. These are the professionals which actually can give you that advice in terms of which stock actually for you to buy, at what point can you buy, and at what point you can sell. So if you contact our brokers, Cedar Capital, Continental Capital, and Stockbrokers Malawi Limited, these are the ones which are going to give you the advice in terms of how you can access the stock market. So there are 2 methods, i.e. either you can invest directly during the primary market, or you invest when the company has just been listed through the secondary market by contacting the brokers which I've just mentioned.
What is the minimum amount one can invest on the Malawi Stock Exchange?
In fact, currently you can buy as even one stock, because what happens that we're now in electronic format, whereby you can even buy even one share. It is admissible within our rules. However, for you to register meaningful gains or meaningful benefits, you need to at least to invest a minimum of about 50,000. Because what would happen?
50,000 kwacha.
50,000 kwacha you can invest. You can invest even 20,000 kwacha. That is just as a guide, but it's not a requirement. You can even buy one share. There's no problem, because what would happen is that now you're going to be hit by a cost, because that broker, a minimum cost he will charge you is 500 kwacha. So why should you buy a share at only one share and be charged 500 kwacha? So you are better off, so that to reduce your what we call the transactional cost, to have a meaningful investment. So we encourage to at least have about either 20,000 or 50,000, such that at least you'll be in a position to register a meaningful return. A good example, when Airtel, which was the latest coming into the market, it was a minimum of 5,000 shares, and that was about 65,000 Malawi kwacha. But then you find that as of today, that 65,000 is more than actually it's more than 65, because the share price has grown from the 12 kwacha 69 to about 105 kwacha. So you can see in terms of the gains once actually you invest on the stock market.
In case you're just joining us, this is MBC Exclusive, and in this edition we have the Chief Executive Officer for the Malawi Stock Exchange, Mr. John Robson Kamanga. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to MBC Exclusive. Our guest in this edition is the Chief Executive Officer for the Malawi Stock Exchange, Mr. John Robson Kamanga. Talking about the brokers, it has been said that most of the brokers do refuse investors with small sums of money. Is the CEO aware of this?
In fact, we have heard about it. Basically, they're not refusing. What they normally do is that they give you a guidance. As I've already alluded to, what happens that if somebody walks into a broker, one of the issues which it will require is actually the KYC, the normal, what we call know your customer details. So you find that others, they don't have those elements because as a member within the financial sector, we also actually obliged by the law, so that at least the brokers should also collect the KYC from the various investors who are participating. For example, if blessings come, we need to know who is Blessing Chileuka. You know, so you need to come up with your ID, you need to come up with your physical address in terms of actually either the electricity bill as well as all the water bills, and then all I would say formalities which could identify that at least we're dealing with the Blessings Chileuka. So you find that others, they would actually lodge a complaint that at least have been rejected, but it's not necessarily being rejected. It's just telling you, can you bring all the KYC for you to be registered? Because what would happen is that if there is that deficiency in the KYC, you find that the system is going to reject it, because it is the system which is mechanically inbuilt that you are supposed to have these parameters when you are registering a particular investor. So if that investor, just like on any other computer, if you try to generate certain information, you find that it should be rejected. And then the other aspect is that, as I've alluded to, you find that somebody would like to invest. Yes, you'd like to invest on maybe on National Bank or Old Mutual or even Standard Bank, and then you say, I want to buy only 2 shares. The broker is going to give you an advice that, yes, at 2 shares, maybe you, for example, National Bank, you only need maybe 6,000 kwacha or 2,000 kwacha. But then there is a cost, you know, because that broker is there in business. It's okay, out of this, my minimum cost in terms of actually to do this, I'll be charging you 5,000 Malawi kwacha. You know, so you can imagine you have maybe boarded a bus all the way from Nkolokosa or Chirimba, going to town 1,500, coming back about 1,500, that is 2,000, and then you pay a broker 5,000 as a minimum cost for transacting, so you're already at 7,000, and then you buy shares of 5,000. You find that it's not economic sense. So that's why what we're saying that the brokers, they're there to provide that professional advice. That look, based on the amount which you'd like actually for you to buy, you find that you may not be in a position to register meaningful benefits. Therefore, would advise you maybe this is not the right investment arena which you can invest, but maybe accumulate a bit of your savings, maybe to the level, for example, 50,000 or maybe 60,000, and then once you accumulate that, you come and then you register. However, the stock market is for each and every Malawian.
Now, as a way of encouraging these small investors, can't you formulate a way whereby they can be coming to you directly, Malawi Stock Exchange, bypassing the brokers? Isn't that possible?
No, like in our case, it's like Malawi Stock Exchange is a provider of the market. You know, just like City of Blantyre, you don't have to go to the mayor or to the chief executive of Blantyre City that I've brought in my tomato, please sell to me. Because the chief executive of City of Blantyre, or the mayor of Lilongwe City, or the chief executive of Mzuzu, they provide the market for you to bring your tomato and sell. So just like us at the Malawi Stock Exchange, we don't buy or sell on behalf of the investors. We bring the market, and we have brought the products, and the products are those 16 listed companies, are those 56 government bonds. And the people, the agents who are dealing in terms of you to access those products are these 3 brokers. So the Malawi Stock Exchange is there as a supervisor or as a referee. We don't take. So as a referee, doesn't actually take part in terms of actually kicking the ball. So in our case, we are just the referee to observe that there is fairness, there is proper procedure being followed, that even the investor who comes on the stock market is well protected. So for us, if an investor comes to the Malawi Stock Exchange, we do welcome them. But what will happen is that we direct them to any of the 3 brokers which we have. the front desk officer would say, we have these 3 brokers, and they will indicate you, we have another broker, stock brokers, you go to the National Bank, you have Continental Capital, you go into Alimi House, you have Cedar Capital, you go into Livingstone where there is the First Capital Bank. So they will direct you, and then you go to meet these brokers in these respective places, such that at least they give you proper advice on how you can invest on the stock market and the benefits realized from the same if you invest on the stock market.
If you were to convince me to invest on the Malawi Stock Exchange, what would you say are the benefits of investing on the Malawi Stock Exchange?
The benefits are enormous blessings once you invest on the stock market. One of which, is what I've already alluded to, is what we call capital gains. You know, if you invest on the stock market, like the example which I gave, most of these companies, they start on a very discounted price. So once you invest on the stock market, you find that at least the price would go up. As I've said, from January to date, there are certain companies which have registered. A good example, like NBS, have grown up by about 280%. That is a benefit of investing on the stock market. The other benefit is that is the dividend income which you earn. Companies actually do declare what we call dividends. These are sometimes every 6 months, and others, they even give 3 dividends. We have seen companies giving 3 dividends in a year. So but that one also depends in terms of the performance of the company during that period of time. So if the company has performed quite very well, you find that they are going to be declaring dividend. The other benefits is that once you invest on the stock market, the share itself, you can use it as collateral. You know, so instead of using your title deed or maybe the blue books, whatsoever, you use the shares to borrow money from the banks. So you can borrow, you go to a bank with their credit analysis and the credit risk analysis. They will be in a position to say, out of this portfolio which you have, we should be in a position to lend you so much. So you use the shares as a collateral. So instead of actually pledging your house or a title deed of your plot or even a blue book of your car, what would happen is that you pledge your shares. So in the case whereby you have failed to settle the loan, they would be in a position to sell those shares, and when there is a balance, you would be in a position actually to get some of it, which has been actually left as a balance from the sale of the shares.
Financial literacy levels in Malawi are so low that even the graduates are struggling to comprehend what we are discussing here. What are you doing to make sure that at least people understand what is happening or what happens on the Malawi Stock Exchange?
In fact, to start, I would say that even this program is part and parcel of actually those initiatives. We have done quite a lot of initiatives. One, we have a team of very young, innovative guys, especially some of us who are the old school, but have got a team of young and very innovative. We have come what we call the WhatsApp bot, whereby people are able to link into our WhatsApp and then get information with regards to on how they can invest. We have also created the Facebook, and with the Facebook, we're able to interact with those who are Facebook savvy. But we have also organized what we call the webinar trainings. You know, these are what we call the virtual trainings. We do almost on a monthly basis the webinar training, just to actually sensitize the general public, because our focus is that we would like to raise awareness of the products so that at least we can stimulate interest, foster desire, as well as encouraging action. So it is built in that aspect that at least we use what we call the electronic media. For example, we use the radio. We also use the print once in a while in terms of advertisement on the products and services of the stock market. We also use the Facebook, as I've already said, the electronic aspect, and then the interaction within even our website. If you log in, you'll be in a position to get as much information as possible, which would also help in terms of understanding. On top of that, the Malawi Stock Exchange, together with the Registrar of Financial Institutions, which is the Reserve Bank of Malawi, we have been conducting what we call financial literacy weeks. Within these financial literacy weeks, we come together, all products within the financial sector, and then the Malawi Stock Exchange comes in the area of capital markets products. On top of that, we also have what we call the international, we call Global Money Week. These are basically trying to train our youngsters, especially the students from primary as well as the tertiary. So the stock market, we run that 1 week, the whole 1 week, whereby we bring together all the players within the capital market so that we can educate. So we have all these initiatives. We also have what we call lectures at universities, even at secondary schools. Myself, I've even actually gone further in terms of actually within the religious circles. When there is a workshop, I've been invited to just give a lecture within, so that no one is left behind. That as we are availed to the word of God for us for salvation, but you can also invest, because even investment, it is also, I would say, encompassed within the Bible in the religious aspect. If you go into the book of Matthew, it will tell you about the issues of the talent, which also it is infused within the biblical sector, that investment is not sinful.
Finally, any investment has some risks attached. What would you say are some of the risks attached to investment on the Malawi Stock Exchange?
Yes, the risks are there. One of the risks which you can have is that sometimes you will be going into the market with an anticipation that at least I'll be realizing the benefits of actually, one, the capital gains, or as well as the dividend. There are times whereby you find that the company can be listed, and then the price may not be in a position to go up because of the performance of the company itself, or the conditions of the economic environment in which we are. Because sometimes the macroeconomic environment can also affect actually the price because of the performance of the company. The other aspect is that the company may not be in a position to pay the dividend, and that is another risk. So, which means that, for example, you have invested your 100,000, you are anticipating that maybe there will be a capital gains, the price would go up maybe to 150,000, but you find that the price may not actually go up. It will even go down to maybe to 90,000. It means you have lost your money about 10,000 in terms of actually the nominal aspect. On top of that, there might not going to be dividend. In the past, we used to have what we call lost share certificates, but that one now is actually news of the past because we have gone electronic, which means that all the share register is now kept through what we call the central share depository system. And it is watertight. And since we rolled out in 2018, we have had no incidents whereby somebody would say, my shares have been sold without the knowledge of his or her knowledge.
Mr. Kamanga, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you. Most welcome.
On that note, we conclude this edition of MBC Exclusive. My guest was the Chief Executive Officer for the Malawi Stock Exchange, Mr. John Robson Kamanga. And I am Blessings Chileuka. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.